Welcome to the Courage to Be podcast with Tanya Vasallo. Before we get into this episode, I want to share with you that I'm on a mission to close the gender gap in the podcasting world so that more and more women's voices are heard. If you feel that this is something you value too, then please rate, review, and share the podcast. And in exchange, and as my way to say thank you to you, I want to give you free access to my signature course called Manifesting Abundance, which typically sells for $997. All you have to do to gain access is leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, take a snapshot of it, and send it to help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up with access to the course. Welcome back to the Courage to Be, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And today we have Sharon Rolph with us. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you for having me, Tanya. This is going to be good. I love to talk about courage.
I know. When I saw your title, The Queen of Courage, I was like, oh, we definitely have to get her on the podcast. So tell us a little bit about your story and how you've acquired this title of the Queen of Courage.
Well, it kind of started with, I guess, my book, the title of my book, Fresh Courage in Retirement, Finding Purpose, Essence, and Fulfillment. And I got the title actually from, the term fresh courage from a Hallmark movie of all things. They were saying when you go home from vacation, you often go home with fresh courage. And it just kind of popped. And I like the sounds of that. When you're watching a fireplace, your fire camping or watching the ocean, you often have a voice that comes to you on the inside. And it might be saying, you could do that, or you should try this. And, oh, no, that's too hard. I can't do that. But that message is I think a spiritual message is, that still small voice inside. And so I had noticed when I went home from vacation, I had more, what's a Jewish term? Grit, or they call it charisma or something. And you got more oomph to do things that needed to be taken care of. And now I've got the momentum to handle things that I maybe put off before.
So talk to me a little bit about what you used to do for a living and then going into retirement with courage.
Okay, so I grew up on a farm, 100-acre farm in Eastern Washington, milked cow, stacked hay. But I was the only one in my family of 5 kids that went to college, and I got a master's degree in behavioral science. I did a lot of it just on nights and weekends. So it took a lot of commitment to do that. And I worked in GTE, the phone company, for 19 years. They transferred me down to Tampa, Florida. And I took the courage to leave a steady job because I felt I had more in me than what my job was requiring. And I had skills for consulting. And that was a big step of faith, but it didn't pan out the way I had expected to, but I still felt it was important that I obey the calling, I guess I could say, that's on the inside. And I eventually put in 8 years at Boeing. And the job I had there kind of used my master's degree and helped people be empowered to solve problems on their own. And when I was nearing retirement, I thought, one of my directors that I worked for in volunteering had said, Sharon, have something else to go to once you leave, something significant. We had done some conventions, and he had probably, after a big convention event, had gotten into one of the lulls that scare you a little bit. What do I do next? So in thinking about what I wanted to do next, January, in basket came an email that said, we're partnering with the community college for a coaching program. And I thought, I think that's a natural next step of my career. So I signed up for it. Boeing didn't pay for it because they were sharp enough to know if I was retiring, they weren't getting benefit from my, this training that they would provide. But I have been empowering, instead of Boeing employees, I'm empowering boomers to live their life. There's so much potential left in all this free time in retirement that I want to engage retirees into a new purpose. And a lot of people don't tell you need a new purpose in retirement.
This is fascinating. I want to ask a couple things. When you said that you left your job and it didn't pan out like you expected, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what were your expectations? What happened? And is that good or bad now in hindsight?
Well, it was good that I followed my heart. What I cooked it down to is that I don't want to have regrets, at the end of life that I didn't try something. And in fact, I have a book here, Five Secrets You Need to Discover Before You Die. And having regrets is a big one. And so I followed my heart from Tampa to Dallas, Texas. And I don't regret having done my best to be obedient. That was part of the equation there for me, was being obedient to this. What would happen? So I started at the bottom of the ladder again, like you do with careers, because my consulting skills, it would have been different if I had done it where I live now, because people around me know who Sharon Rolph is. And they can vouch for my character, my reliability, my integrity. Where when I'm, 3,000 miles away from home, that was a totally different experience. And I got a couple very small gigs in consulting, but, I wasn't bitter about it. I did what was right for me, I felt.
And so when you're saying that because what I was understanding is that you decided to quit corporate and it didn't go the way you wanted it to go. And there's no regret there, but did you feel that you would have done it differently or something, Sharon?
Well, it was a hard road because I wound up being a temp agent, that went out to various jobs in like a bank. I had 2, 3 offers through the temp jobs to take permanent jobs, but it was filling the need at the time to be making an income. But to sign on for the next 5, 10 years is just not what I was signing up for. But I did work for Y2K, when that came. I worked for IBM during that period, and they only needed us for about 6 months to prepare for the wave of confusion, I guess. But eventually, one of my friends in the church there said, she kept telling me 3 times, I think, that she felt I was supposed to come back to Washington where my family relatives are. So eventually I said, well, maybe that's the way I should go. It was a strong conviction for her. So, but you need friends around you to help guide you too.
Do you feel like you have any regrets? Speaking of regrets from this book that you spoke about?
No, other than I never married, never had kids, and that makes retirement very different. And yet I'm doing what I feel is the right thing to do for me, is to empower people. I believe everybody has a nugget of gold inside of them, and to inspire and encourage them is right down my alley. I'm very comfortable doing what I'm doing. And even though the progress has been slow, doing podcasts is my favorite way of getting the word out of what the work I'm doing here now.
So no regrets then with living the life that you chose to live. If you didn't get married, you didn't have kids. And I love that you share that, Sharon, because I think it's like so expected. Like everyone should get married, should have kids, should have a job. And especially for your generation, for boomers, like that's definitely the norm. That's what you should have done, and I'll put should in air quotes. Do you feel good that you chose this path or that this path was set up for you?
Well, good question, Tanya. I think I was maybe too independent. In fact, I've been just really chewing the last 2, 3 weeks on receiving. I never had help paying for college. I think I had maybe $600 in scholarship, but college is a lot more expensive than $600. But, I have always been wished I was married. I have a wedding dress in my closet. That was my expect a miracle plan. And I have not lost hope in that. So having had closer relationships is a little bit of a regret. but time isn't running out yet, and I expect to live to 100.
That is awesome. But I love your honesty with that, Sharon, because you're expecting it. You still want it. You're opening space for it. And you're just being honest. You've been living your life and you know that it's like, oh, well, I would still like to have a relationship, or a more intimate relationship with someone to share my journey with. Why do you think it hasn't happened yet? I just heard before independence, but I wonder if there is anything else, as you're analyzing your own life and your journey.
Well, for the most part, I haven't found very many interesting men. Maybe I'm kind of intellectual and a thinker. And in my heart of hearts, my highest wish would be somebody that I can create synergy with, that we're better together, and that we bring out the strength in each other. But regret, I've not dated that much at all. The thing I start to say about chewing on is receiving. Since I've had to be so independent financially and walking my own journey with wisdom and learning, that and your job often eats up your life, so don't have regret, but it does make it a little more challenging, because so now I have, after reading the book last year by our Surgeon General, Together, it's really about loneliness. And he said in there that people who feel invisible is another form of loneliness. I had bragged about not having to deal with loneliness. I solved that in about 22 years old. Friday night, I was sewing an ripple Afghan, and this critical voice comes and says, well, Sharon, you should be out there socializing. You find people in bars and so forth, and that's what you do on a Friday night. And I said, I'm doing what I chose to do. I happen to like my own company. And so just go away. And that critical voice never bothered me again. And so when you're comfortable with yourself, and when you're making your own choices and decisions, then you've got a handle on life that doesn't throw you. And well, the other thing, Tanya, is that when I moved to Tampa, I had been reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of my friends, before leaving at my goodbye party, said, Sharon, give yourself 6 months before you turn around and decide that's a bad decision. And give yourself 6 months to find new friends, basically. And 3 months into it, I thought, oh, I got this. By 4th month, I was starting to question myself. But my point there, I've kind of lost. But courage. I started, Joshua chapter 1 and 2 talks about lots of courage. Do not be afraid. Be of good courage. Be of great courage. Do not be afraid. And I started stomping my foot and say, I refuse to live my life based on fear. And I brag about, I'm 76 now and look pretty good. And that has made such a difference in my life, because that's probably where the courage element handle started, is when I took control of my life with courage. And do not be afraid.
Thank you for that, Sharon. We're going to take a quick pause and we'll come back. I want to share an amazing opportunity, my signature event, Increase Your Income and Impact. It's happening May 31st through June 1st, a Thursday through Saturday, in person in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And this event will be infusing it with a ton of the success principles from Napoleon Hill. You will walk away after these 3 days shifting your mindset from not enough money to manifesting on the spot. You'll also learn how to get over your fear of visibility in sales so that you can have a greater impact in the world. These in-person events are life transforming, and you can now get your early bird ticket with the code LUCKY24 and save $400 for a limited time. I look forward to seeing you there. Just listen to what some of the participants have to say about it.
Hi, my name is Georgette Lombardo, and I have just finished attending an event hosted by Tanya Vasayo. It is called Increase Your Income and Impact. She helps women entrepreneurs be the best versions of themselves in creating amazing income and impact in their community. Kind of clever name. I am a professional dog trainer, and I have worked with Tanya on and off since 2017, and this is now my 4th event. At first I was thinking, do I have time for this? Am I going to learn anything? And the answer is yes. Yes, I have time for this. Yes, I need to make time for myself. And yes, I learned some new things. Because even though I've heard some messages before, that was when I was first starting out. And now I am much more accomplished with Tanya's help. If you need to get unstuck, Tanya is your gal.
So we're back, and I want to go just rewind a little bit in your conversation of receiving. You've mentioned a couple times receiving,
Yeah.
and that, maybe because you've been more independent, because you didn't marry, and being a boomer, it's a different generation. I think nowadays women are more independent, or it's more accepted if they choose not to marry, if they choose not to have kids, there's different options of what we can choose our life to look like. But talk to me a little bit about this whole theme of receiving and what that means to you and why you've brought it up a couple times.
Well, the work that I've been doing has been pretty much gratis. I just let it flow out of me, and I do what I feel is the right next thing to do, because writing my book was one of those things. And let me happen to mention that I love color, I love words of wisdom, and I love sewing. And they all come together in a nice little package with these little art blocks that I make. And so that's a key to helping people find what they love to do and maybe a new purpose. But receiving, I've sometimes wondered if I had a block around making money on my own and being empowered. I don't know, supporting myself in the work of my hands, my life calling. So I've been starting to imagine kicking the fact that I haven't received out the door, go, and to let the flow. Life is energy, and it flows, and somehow my flow has been sidetracked or stopped or disappeared or whatever, but I'm wanting to embrace the energy of life and the flow of comes to me. Oh, in fact, I have some clothes here I'm going to take out to an auction today at one of the club meetings I'm in, and it's starting to feel like as I give, being able to receive automatically kind of bubbles up. And I'm also starting to work on a course on being volunteering. And something came up recently with volunteering. Volunteering helps you feel good. And so the volunteering to share what I no longer need to somebody that could use it is a blessing that doesn't have a price to it. It's just giving a flow from your heart energy.
Yeah, let's go deeper into this, Sharon, because as you're saying, giving, like volunteering is a form of giving. And to me, it sounds like what you're saying is that it gives us purpose. And you did mention that before, that boomers need a new purpose when they get into retirement. So let's go deeper into giving or finding purpose when you go into, like, how long ago did you go into retirement?
It was April of 2016.
So it's been a while now,
Yeah,
almost what, 8 years or so?
Yeah.
So how was it going into retirement? What was your purpose? Is the purpose still the same? You were mentioning that retirement was a little bit different. I'm curious to hear your story of going into retirement.
Well, yeah, I started coaching class the week before I left my job. So the training I was taking in coaching lasted 18 months, I believe. And the first thing that they had taught us was how to write our essence statement. And I used to have it on the wall here, but the professionals thought I should take it down. Maybe it's too homey, but my essence statement is, I am precious jewel of wisdom. I am colorful collaborator, motivator, and learner. I am tranquil, authentic, and pure inspirer. I light fires. And when I first shared that, they had to stand in a circle and read our essence statement to each other. And when it came to be my time to share mine. As it came my turn, I felt this shock that inside, I thought, nobody's ever asked me to share my soul before. It felt like my essence was inside of me. And after 3-4 months of, getting Medicare and Social Security all hammered out, I had made the wall hanging, and I came over one day 3 different times and read my essence statement. And all of a sudden, I realized that when I lived from my essence, my soul, every day was right. It felt good to me. That's a powerful gift. And it's a step beyond purpose. But often when we volunteer and when we're doing for others and we're living our essence, purpose kind of comes along on the same journey. So it's okay. Let me also mention one of the things that my big vision is to impact 10% of the boomers to use their untapped time freedom, untapped potential, because potential has been important to me since a teenager. And all this free time in retirement feels like a untapped potential that needs tap into to help people make the world a better place. So that's a big challenge, and it's something that I'm putting a lot of energy into.
How do we tap into people's potential? I mean,
Well,
how do you bring that out?
yeah, the courage is one of the big parts. And I do have on my website an ebook for free that's called A Call to Courage. And I talk about the courage to have, the courage to be, the courage to be, do, and have. Yeah. That there's so many things that, we got to put some insurance on that. You got to be safe. You got to make sure that the bad things don't happen to you. Well, oftentimes the bad things draw out of us a strength we never knew we had. And having courage to not fear, but be in control of your life is the biggest challenge I think there is. So the courage to express yourself. Tanya is a very unique person. And if, huddle and be apologetic and have what you don't believe who you really are syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, imposter. Yeah. But you live into the best that Tanya has, then that feeling of giving your best and your all is just, there's nothing like it. There's a soul satisfaction and contentment that has when you live from your authentic, the intrinsic motivation that's inside of you. To me, I like to use the term heaven on earth. that being so satisfied and value yourself and loving yourself, that feels like heaven on earth.
We're going to take another quick break, and I want to come back to this idea of potential. I want to share an amazing opportunity. My signature event, Increase Your Income and Impact. It's happening May 31st through June 1st, of Thursday through Saturday, in person in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And this event will be infusing it with a ton of the success principles from Napoleon Hill. You will walk away after these 3 days shifting your mindset from not enough money to manifesting on the spot. You'll also learn how to get over your fear of visibility in sales so that you can have a greater impact in the world. These in-person events are life transforming, and you can now get your early bird ticket with the code LUCKY24 and save $400 for a limited time. I look forward to seeing you there. Just listen to what some of the participants have to say about it.
Hi, this is Jenny Casson, and I just wanted to let you know that we're wrapping up day 3 of an amazing event that Tanya Vasayo led. And I have a lot of experience with my business. I've been doing my business now for 6 years. And so there's a lot of things that I feel like I really have it under control, and maybe I don't need to be here. Maybe I don't need to do this. But there were so many exercises that there were a few times where Tanya said, do this exercise. And I was like, oh, I don't need to do that. But I did it. And it just led to so many breakthroughs, and I have so many new ideas of how to take things to the next level with my personal finances and my money mindset and just how I relate with money, which is pretty funny because my whole business is all about money and finance. So Tanya, thank you so much for your amazing teachings and just your amazing energy. And I can't wait to implement all the things that I learned during your 3-day event.
We're back and we were talking about potential. And I'm curious, Sharon, I know you specialize more in retirees because that's your segment. And you've been in retirement now for a while. What would you say to someone that's wanting to tap into their own potential? Is it easier to do that in retirement, or while someone has a career or is a professional or is working on their own? Like, who has that advantage of tapping into their own potential?
I really don't know the answer to that. I have a coaching friend who has taught their essence statement to kindergartners, kids that were acting out in class, and the teacher was having a hard time controlling them. And once they understood, because life kind of forces us to compare ourselves to each other. When you don't wear the right shoes or the right haircut or the right jeans, you're made to feel less than, or you're not cool or whatever. But there's such a satisfaction that when you like 5 and 6 year olds understand that they're different, and that's a beautiful thing, all those other voices kind of fall away. They're not important. How I feel about myself is important. And loving myself, we're often kind of cautioned about loving ourselves and getting a big head. We've got to be careful about getting a big head. And that's exactly wrong. Loving ourselves. In fact, I've been on several dating sites, and guys seem to understand that women especially need to love themselves and accept themselves, because then the man's love can soak in. It can reach deep into your psyche and be a beautiful thing. I'm not sure I answered your question.
Yeah, I was just going back, like, is it easier to tap into your potential? Because that's what you were talking about as a retired person because you have more time, or as a professional. I just feel like sometimes maybe our generation, Gen X or millennials, like if they're busy working, raising kids, they're just involved with life, that they might have just let their dreams seep through the cracks and not pay attention to that, versus someone that's in retirement. And that's where I was trying to, like,
Sure.
is it easier for someone that's in retirement to tap into their potential, or retirees are just kind of like, you know what? No, I gave it my all and I don't need to, this is my time of my life that I just want to chill and enjoy, this time that I don't have to be worrying about all these things. I don't have to be raising kids. I don't have to be doing all these other things. So that's where I was going with the question about potential. Is it easier to tap into your potential in your younger, like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s, or is it easier to tap into your potential as a retiree and your experience and the people that you've dealt with, and also with your years of wisdom, because you've already experienced this?
Well, yeah, we do get busy, putting a roof over your head, buying your car, paying for your education. And it does become a priority. I agree. But how many people do we know that have been artists and their parents say, oh, you can't make a living being an artist or a musician? And how much guts, courage, oftentimes people decide to transform their life because I have a health issue. They have gotten so stressed out with doing what they should do, making a living and not making a living from your heart. And the crisis comes where they say, okay, what I've been doing does not satisfy me. And I think I'm starting to hear that companies are starting to tap into their essence, soul, your inner spark is starting to be important, because as much as AI sounds like a threat because it makes everything look so good and so easy for you, but it can't do the innovation, the creative building new things. In fact, this principle about vulnerability, the willingness to show up and be seen without any guarantee of the outcome, is what Brene Brown describes as vulnerability. And the vulnerability to be a musician at 20 years old with no guarantee of the outcome kind of sounds like a leap of faith. And I love vulnerability because to me, it's possibly magic shows up, because when I am vulnerable first, it invites you to also be vulnerable, reciprocal. And you might find there's things in common. In fact, that happened a couple times yesterday that I couldn't believe who I was talking to. I had just created on Instagram, I do Sharon_Queen of Courage. And I had just created my weekly short video. And here the person on the Zoom call was telling me, we were talking about the courage to be, not only to love yourself, that was part of it, or to do something different. And vulnerability is where the possibility of innovation happens. And we don't often have the courage to do, but businesses and employers are starting to wake up to the innovation that comes from inside people. And we don't need AI to help us. So,
yeah, that I agree with that. And I think it's important to focus on, our potential and what it is that how we want to live this life, of this journey that we're on. And I'm curious, you just mentioned fear, obviously courage and fear go hand in hand. How do we overcome our biggest fears when we have to tap into courage? Like, how do you, because vulnerability also requires overcoming fear. What are those steps for you?
I started imagining when I was going down, what if, that fear thing, I decided that I would mentally imagine a stop sign in front of my mind and just don't go there. That's not the kind of mental mindset I want to have today or this hour or this minute, that you shut it up and say, I'm going to live on faith. I have a strong sense of faith. I love talking about courage, potentials, and curiosity, because it opens my life to something beyond just me. And it asks for what else is out there that could help me in this moment. It's actually kind of a spiritual element that invites, okay, I've come to the end of what I think I can do here, and what else is possible? What needs a step of courage or faith or just being curious? I had this weekend, one of my nephews asked me about this term, cognitive distortion, and he referred to some article, and I did a little bit of research, and what I cooked it down to is that there's people that are yes or no people, yes or no. There's black or white. And there's no grays in there. You have to be all or nothing. And it sounded like that this might be a tripping up point for people who may go on to be addicts. I had on my loneliness group weekly, I do a loneliness group from loneliness to resilience. And I got the feeling that people that a guest had come on a couple of months ago that had been an alcoholic for 37 years. And he didn't feel safe around people. But the pain pills and the drugs and alcohol that will be safe. That will protect me. That's my go-to place. And it never fails me, but it also has wound him into a very closed down person. So I like to think of, we don't often pat ourselves on the back for the progress that we've made. And I think of a little red wagon. And, if I start with my little red wagon at, mark the place, and then I've made progress on a daily, weekly basis, that little wagon shows I've made progress. I'm not where I used to be. And you need the allowing of growth to happen. And it's not a yes or no element. It's not black or white. I'm making progress to a new future for me. And getting to your point about potential is nobody tells us in retirement it's time to live from our heart. With all this free time on our hands, we've made a living with our brain and brawn, and it's time now to tap into our heart. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. They don't know who they are. They've forgotten their dreams a long time ago because they had to pay for the roof and the education and all that. But we need license. Well, okay, one of my blocks here I thought it was going to, fresh courage is your time to shine. And that takes courage to be willing to look at the best that you brought into this world, your natural talents, the things you love to do. That's all part of the formula that goes into creating your essence statement too.
That's great. Do you feel like the people that live in retirement that don't have a purpose have a shorter lifespan?
Well, there's lots of studies that have been done about that. In fact, I don't think I have my document open, that you have more thriving with purpose, you're more productive, you're smarter, and you usually make more money.
Those are all great things to have. So that's good. Thank you for that, Sharon. That's always important. So for anyone listening, that if you're going into retirement, if you're already in retirement, make sure that you are setting yourself up to have some form of purpose as we're going. Thank you for all this time, Sharon. Where can people find you?
I have a website called SharonRolph.com, and that's where you'll find called a Courage free ebook there. And I do have my book on Amazon, Fresh Courage in Retirement, Finding Purpose, Essence, and Fulfillment. Now, my book doesn't take you through the process of essence. I have a lot of call to actions there about you finding your own purpose with some questions that I love asking, good questions and trigger your thoughts and mind. I do have a lot of resources in the appendix. I started collecting movies and websites and books that can help feed your search for personal growth. Personal growth is another huge thing it kind of goes along with volunteering, and a purpose is that you have less doctor visits, you live longer, and you have contentment and life satisfaction. So it is on SharonRolph.com.
I love it. Thank you for that, Sharon. And as we're wrapping up, I like asking my guests, what is one thing our listeners can do to live a life with more courage?
Well, this little saying I found on the wall at work one day, and it said, if one has a talent and cannot use it, one has failed. If one has a talent and only uses half of it, one has partially failed. And if one has a talent and learns to use the whole of it, they have gloriously succeeded and won a satisfaction and triumph few people ever know. That's by Thomas Swift, and that reverberates, I think, through my spirit.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Sharon. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Hi there. I have something really cool for you. I want to give you free access to my signature course called Manifesting Abundance, which typically sells for $997. You can check out all the details in the show notes, and all you have to do to gain access is leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, take a snapshot of it, and send it to help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up with access to the course.